Good afternoon. Welcome to the fourth in our series of educational webinars, Everything You Need to Know as a First-Time Exhibitor. My name is Alice Konopasek, and I'm the Director of Brand Marketing at NAFEM. Here with me today are Jackie Janis, Senior Exhibits Manager, and Kelsey Kwasniak, Senior Exhibits Coordinator. As noted, this is the fourth webinar in our educational series. Between now and the show, we'll present additional webinars on topics we think that you'll find useful. To find out what we have scheduled, take a look at the nafemshow.org/resources/exhibitor education section of the website and sign up. Some reminders about the show. Show days are Wednesday through Friday, February 26th through 28th at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Kickoff party starts us out on Tuesday evening, and the NAFEM party is at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Thursday, February 27th from 7 to 11. And entertainment, in case you haven't heard, is Grammy-nominated international superstars, One Republic. Now, about today's webinar. As always, webinars are recorded and are available to you in the exhibitor education section of the show website at thenafemshow.org. And if you have any questions during today's webinar, please send them to us using the Q&A function in your Zoom webinar control panel. As always, we'll answer everything that we can, but if we do run out of time or don't get to your question, we will get back to you as soon as possible after the webinar with the information that you need. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Kelsey to talk to you about what you came here to hear. Everything you need to know as a first-time exhibitor. Kelsey, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Alice. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. As you can see here, our agenda shown includes reviewing show opportunities, operations, marketing, and of course, our open Q&A at the end. So as you can see, we have quite a few topics that we're going to be covering today for first-time exhibitors, or even if you're new to your company and maybe your company's exhibited with us for a long time. We're happy to provide these resources, so let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with specialty features and programs on the show floor. At the NAFEM show, we offer all kinds of exciting, relevant, and innovative features on the show floor to deliver value to attendees, ensuring they're having a very wow experience at the show. So let's walk through some of these features on the show floor. First, at Center Stage. At Center Stage is going to be the place where learning comes to life. From practical, hands-on, in-booth learning provided by nearly every exhibitor to spotlighted presentations about food service trends and topics, featuring thought leaders and industry icons. This is near our NAFEM booth on the show floor. We also have our What's Hot, What's Cool this year, which is our product gallery, which is always a popular high-traffic area of the show floor, featuring the newest and most innovative solutions emerging onto the food service E&S scene. Backed by popular demand, the gallery is going to return to the NAFEM show for the first time since 2019. We also have something new this year, our U.S. Culinary Open, where we'll have 12 of today's best professional chefs compete on the show floor at the inaugural launch of the U.S. Culinary Open. These talented chefs will be using the best equipment and food sources to vie for the title of U.S. Culinary Open champion. In addition to these three features on the floor, we also have 3 lounges throughout the show floor, 2 in Hall B toward the front and 1 in Hall C, which will allow attendees an opportunity to relax, take a break, and meet with other attendees. The NAFEM booth is noted on the floor plan in the back of Hall C, booth 7843. The NAFEM booth is a place on the show floor where attendees and exhibitors can stop to ask questions about NAFEM with our NAFEM staff, including the NAFEM show and the NAFEM network. There will be plenty of seating and the ability to charge your devices while you plan your next exhibitor visit as an attendee, or if you're an exhibitor and you'd like to take a break. Once again, channel partners Safisa, FCSI, FIDA, and MAFC are co-locating with NAFEM in this space. And finally, we have our training time feature. On Thursday, February 27th and Friday, February 28th, the show floor opens 1 hour early from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. for exhibitors to offer training. Training time badges are provided to members of CFESA, FCSI, FIDA, and all buying groups, allowing them access to the show floor for training. If you have an interest in scheduling an early meeting with an operator, contact us at info@thenafemshow.org, and we'll make sure the operator gets set up with training time access. Again, training time is before the hall opens on Thursday, February 27th, and Friday, February 28th, from 8 to 9 a.m. each day. Now, as we get into our networking opportunities while you're at the show, NAFEM will host its kickoff party on Tuesday, February 25th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Georgia World Congress Center in Hall B1. So that's in the front of the hall to the far left. And we'll also be hosting the NAFEM party at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Thursday, February 27th from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. As a reminder, you can purchase tickets to both the kickoff party and the NAFEM party by logging into your Exhibitor Resource Center and then selecting the Exhibitor registration dashboard. You'll be able to add tickets as you register your team to attend. If at any time you want to go back in and purchase additional tickets, you can also do so. As a reminder, you just have to go through the Exhibitor Resource Center and then select the Exhibitor registration dashboard. Exhibitors are also permitted to provide food and alcoholic beverages in their booth for the show floor receptions on Wednesday, February 26th and Thursday, February 27th from 3 to 5 p.m. Food and all beverages must be purchased through the exclusive caterer levy, which is, the exclusive caterer within the Georgia World Congress Center. Alcoholic beverages served in booths may only be purchased and served by licensed bartenders from Levy. Note that alcoholic beverages can only be served during the show floor receptions. To place an order with Levy, please reference the order form provided in the Exhibitor Resource Center. I also mentioned earlier that we do have our 3 lounges on the show floor, which do provide not only that additional area to relax, but also to meet attendees and network. If you're ever wondering where to start in your planning process, whether you're a first-time exhibitor or perhaps you're working with a company as a new contact, but your company has exhibited at the NAFEM show before, we always recommend going to the Exhibitor Resource Center. This is where you're going to be able to access any of the show logistics or details that you need to be successful as you're planning your booth. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Resource Center. We also referenced this in a previous webinar, but we'll go over that very briefly here. So when you log in using your NAFEM member dashboard login, you'll be able to see the home page of the Exhibitor Resource Center here. You can also access this by going to the NAFEMshow.org and selecting the large button at the top, which also says Exhibitor Resource Center. So once you use your member details to log in, this is the home page. And as a brief overview here, you can see that we have a lot of those most important details on our home page under each of these tiles, including our full checklist, in which exhibitors can view anything that may be optional or something that you might need to do in preparation for your booth. So that might be placing any orders, signing up for any advertising opportunities, submitting any utility orders, registering your exhibitor appointed contractor, or even registering your staff. This can also be done from the homepage. So it's in 2 places, both the checklist and on the homepage, all of these items. You also can place any orders for rigging or any kind of furniture that is needed with Freeman through the Freeman online system right here. You can review the targeted move-in floor plan. And we also have details around our hosted buyer program located at the bottom here, where you can invite buyers to attend the NAFEM show for free, which is up to a $2,000 value. Highly recommend checking this out, selecting here where you can learn more and apply, as well as an invitation to easily invite any customers you might like to attend the show. Also, on the left-hand side here are our forms. And this is any form that you could possibly think of to ensure that you're prepared for the NAFEM show. That includes if you have a multi-level exhibit, which is found in the GWCC guide, our move-in and move-out details, critical dates. Again, anything that you could possibly need is going to be in this Exhibitor Resource Center. So we highly recommend logging in, familiarizing yourself if you have not done so already, and this will ensure that you've checked off everything that you need to be successful. Moving on to some helpful cost-saving tips. When exhibiting at the NAFEM show, we know that having cost-saving tips really help you manage those expenses. So we have a few items here that we'd like to point out as first-time exhibitors. First, you can order those services that I just mentioned, especially utilities, by the deadline date. So that could be any kind of electrical, air, water services, also rigging, which is ordered through Freeman's online website. So you'll want to make sure that you order by any of those discount deadlines. These are featured in the Exhibitor Resource Center, but we also, just for your reference during this webinar, to note as we get to the end of the webinar, that Edlin, our utility provider's discount deadline is February 5th, and Freeman's discount deadlines are January 27th. If you place orders by those deadlines, you're going to be receiving a significant discount, very different than if you place that order on site. So we highly recommend noting those discount deadlines and making sure that you place those orders by those deadlines. Other deadlines you want to note and pay attention to include our shipping deadlines. So this is included in Freeman's online website, where you can take note of any shipments that are going to be arriving after their deadlines, which could incur additional charges. Again, once we get to the end of this webinar, we'll review all of those deadlines in one place. Highly recommend not only reviewing this webinar again, but writing down those deadlines, because it definitely adds up when you meet those deadlines and avoid those additional surcharges. Another cost-saving tip is, when possible, you'll want to order labor on straight time. Straight time is 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Outside of those times, it could be overtime, double time, or holiday time. So just keep this in mind if you have specific needs, if you need your booth built past certain hours in order to be show ready by Wednesday, February 26th. If you're able to order labor on straight time, that does result also in an additional cost savings. In addition to the 3 items above, you can also make sure to send your hanging signs if you plan to have a hanging sign. Again, if you have an island or a peninsula, these are the only booths allowed to have hanging signs. But if you do have a hanging sign, you want to make sure to send those to Freeman's Advanced Warehouse to ensure your signage is on show site when the rigging team labor call starts. What this means is that your sign isn't being shipped separately. It isn't being, let's say, hand carried for some reason by your team. When it's shipped to the advanced warehouse, this way Freeman's rigging team can open that sign and then start the rigging process. So this doesn't set your booth setup behind. If they're rigging, you can't necessarily be in your booth to set up the space. So this allows you to stay on time. It also allows you to avoid any kind of additional labor charges or just waiting for the labor team to arrive to set up that hanging sign. Next, you'll want to make sure that you're aware of when your carrier arrives, and you'll want them to arrive on time. So if not, pre-show, your freight will be delayed arriving to your booth. And post-show, your freight could be redirected via Freeman, incurring additional charges. So just to review that again, when we say be sure your carrier arrives on time, this is, like the next point suggests, knowing your targeted move-in and empty return time, which we'll get into a little bit later. So as we linked here, also in the Exhibitor Resource Center that we reviewed earlier, make sure to take a look at your targeted move-in time. This will ensure that not only your carrier is aware of this time, but it allows you to make sure that you're making the most of that time you're given to set up your space. If you would like to request a change to your move-in time as it currently shows in the Exhibitor Resource Center, these requests can be directly submitted through Freeman's online service kit. Keep in mind that a Freeman team member will receive that change request form from you, and they do take about 3 business days to respond. Typically, change requests are accepted by Freeman as late as January 27th. Sometimes one-off exceptions can be made, but we highly recommend if you need more time to set up, that you are requesting an earlier move-in if needed. Again, it's not guaranteed. It's based on if Freeman can accommodate that request as soon as possible before that January 27th deadline. And while we're talking about move-in in general, we just want to note that by shipping any of that freight to Freeman's Advanced Warehouse, this is going to guarantee that your freight is going to be at your booth at your scheduled targeted time. I'll say that one more time. By shipping freight to Freeman's Advanced Warehouse, this guarantees your freight will be in your booth, ready to unpack at your scheduled targeted time. So if you're sending freight directly to show site on the other side, freight deliveries may begin checking in at the marshaling yard, but again, it's not guaranteed to make it to your booth by your move-in time. That's not a guarantee. When you ship to the advanced warehouse, it is guaranteed to be dropped in front of your space or near your space, or if you have multiple spaces, it is guaranteed to be dropped by that designated targeted move-in time. So we always highly recommend shipping to the advanced warehouse, because then you don't have that delay and you are using the full amount of time you're given to set up your space in order to be show ready. Please remember to not have your show site freight delivered prior to your scheduled targeted move-in time, or you may be subject to off-target move-in fees. It's also important to note to not schedule labor to set your exhibit for your targeted move-in time if you're shipping your freight directly to show site. This is because it can take up to 4 hours for your freight to be delivered to your booth. So I'll just repeat that one more time, because I know this is a very big detail, is that if you schedule your labor to set up your exhibit, you don't want to schedule it for your exact move-in time. So if it's at 8 a.m. is your move-in time on whichever day it is moving in, you don't want to schedule your labor for 8 a.m. because if your freight is not dropped, especially if you shipped it directly to show site and it can't be guaranteed that it's going to be dropped in front of your space, then you will have labor that you're now paying for that are just waiting for your freight to be dropped. So we mention this as a cost saving tip because we know that labor is often the most expensive thing an exhibitor can pay for someone to install your booth. And if you have labor coming in to install your booth and they're just waiting for your freight to be dropped, we want to make sure that you know to not schedule it right at that time. In addition, trucks reporting to the marshaling yard after 2 p.m. on scheduled target move-in days are not guaranteed same day unloading. Any truck in the marshaling yard after 2 p.m. on scheduled target move-in days are not guaranteed same day unloading. In short, I know I just went over a lot of very nitty-gritty details, but in short, we recommend shipping your freight to the advanced warehouse so you have it in your booth upon arrival at your targeted move-in time. This makes it the absolute simplest for your team to make sure that your freight is there and your team is ready to start moving in. Now that we talked about pre-show items and cost-saving tips, we'll now get into some on-site tips once your team has arrived. So as soon as your team has arrived, whether you're grabbing wristbands to set up your booth or your team has grabbed their badges at our registration desk, the first thing you'll want to do when you get to the exhibit hall floor is to go to your booth, which is going to be marked on the floor, and check that everything has arrived. If you ship to the advanced warehouse, again, your freight is going to be in your booth by the start of exhibitor move-in hours for your targeted move-in day. So let's say your team gets there a little early. Well, let's say a day early, but your targeted move-in day is the day after. Your freight may not be dropped in your booth because your targeted move-in date is the day after. So just keep that in mind. If you shipped directly to show site, keep in mind, there is not a guaranteed time the freight will arrive in your booth on your targeted day. It depends on when your truck arrives on site at the marshaling yard. And then once your truck arrives and checks in, it could take up to 4 hours for your freight to be delivered to your booth. So again, we recommend shipping to the advanced warehouse. Also, once you're there on site, you'll want to make sure you identify the Freeman service desk which we do mark on our show floor. It is located upstairs. So we're in halls B, C in the Georgia World Congress Center. The Freeman Exhibitor Services Center is upstairs in the back left corner of hall B near the 1100 aisle. Of course, we will reference this in future webinars as we get closer, but just make sure to identify the Freeman Exhibitor Service Desk. There is where you're going to obtain empty stickers. You want to obtain empty stickers as soon as possible on site because assuming you ship to the advanced warehouse, or even if you ship direct to show site and your freight is in your booth, once your boxes or crates are empty, you can now label these with empty stickers. So this allows forklift drivers to clear this empty freight until the end of the show. This gives you more space in your booth to complete your setup. Next tip is if you ordered labor, check in with the Freeman Exhibitor Services Desk and confirm their scheduled time to set up. The Freeman Service Desk is staffed all through move out during business hours, so we highly recommend checking in with them. If you ordered labor, it allows them to check their system and make sure that that order is in, and they can also probably give you some more detail on when you can expect that labor to begin in your space. You'll also want to remember to bring all kinds of tracking numbers, maybe that you have order confirmations, maybe you even have flyers that you wanted to print last minute on site. You'll want to bring all of those items with you because then you can easily reference them. And if you're not sure of where to go or how to find this or how to figure it out, our NAFEM team members are happy to assist you while you're on site. Now, if a shipment is lost or perhaps it's not in your booth and it's showing as delivered, you'll need to know the address it was sent to and preferably know how it was written out along with the tracking number and the carrier. If you share this with your NAFEM team members, which we will be wearing designated shirts on site throughout all of move-in and the show, then this allows our team to better assist you and help find that shipment. Our last two very big tips is to wear comfortable shoes. Very, very important. So the concrete floor in an exhibit hall is not forgiving and can really take a toll on your feet. We always recommend bringing even 2 pairs of shoes so that you can alternate shoes from one show day to the next. And of course, during exhibitor move-in for safety purposes, you want to wear comfortable closed-toed shoes. Wearing sandals or open-toed shoes of any kind can always be a danger and a risk. So wear those comfortable sneakers, especially during move-in. And then, of course, you can always dress up a little bit nicer once the show is open. And finally, our last on-site tip, during move-in, you'll want to look for your on-site concierge team if you have questions. We will divide the show the show floor into sections, and each section will be designated a NAFEM, Freeman, and our Edlin Event Utilities contact to answer your questions and resolve any concerns as soon as possible. Your NAFEM representative, as I mentioned earlier, will be in a NAFEM branded shirt. So that means that based on where you are in the floor, it's not that you only have one contact, but every section of the floor is going to have a designated NAFEM team member, a Freeman team member, and our utilities provider, Edlin, throughout that area. And we will be checking in with you just to ensure that everything is going smoothly. And if there's anything that we can assist with, we'll make sure to make your experience that much easier and that much smoother. Empty return floor plans. So as we mentioned earlier, when you first get to the show, you'll want to make sure you identify the exhibitor, the Freeman Exhibitor Services Center to get those empty stickers. Well, now we're talking about Friday when the show closes at 3 p.m. on Friday, February 28th. Now you'll have any of those crates or boxes that you marked with those stickers returned back to your booth. So similar to the Target move-in floor plan, Freeman will provide an empty return floor plan after the new year. The floor plan will indicate when you will receive your empty crates, your equipment, packing materials, your boxes, anything that you marked with those stickers. This move out plan is going to help you plan move out and just scheduling in general for that booth to then push back out of the Georgia World Congress Center. Additional information can be found in the Exhibitor Services Manual located in the Exhibitor Resource Center about 30 days out from the show. So I would expect something more in the new year that we will share. So be on the lookout for these details because it does help your team now, not only move in smoothly, but move out smoothly. Now let's chat about some new features, some new and some returning features that we're excited to offer to our members this year. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about, before I play this video here, our attendee-driven lead retrieval. This is something new that NAFEM is offering this year. And before I get into too many details, we'll go ahead and watch this quick 2-minute video explaining what is attendee-driven lead retrieval. So as we just saw from the video, attendee-driven lead retrieval, also short named ADLR, is an exciting new feature NAFEM is providing complimentary to all exhibitors. This is going to empower attendees to capture your digital content with their smartphones by scanning a unique QR code posted on a sign or on your physical booth. These leads will then be provided to exhibitors to review those leads, while attendees can scan and instantly receive your content. So it's kind of two-way there. So again, as a reminder, the attendee is actually empowered to scan that QR code in your booth, whether you put it on the physical structure of your booth or in a paper sign or a magazine, a sign holder in your booth. That attendee is empowered to then scan that QR code, get your content that your team has uploaded instantly, and your team is now collecting passive sales leads. Our second great tool that we are bringing back again for this year is our exhibitor-driven lead retrieval. Now, this is considered more of the traditional lead retrieval with our CompuLead app, which is provided by NAFEM's registration partner, CompuSystems. So this is going to be the more traditional exhibitor-driven lead retrieval. It sounds like it in the name, which means the exhibitor, your team, has the app downloaded and is scanning attendee badges. So as a reminder, we had attendee-driven lead retrieval, where attendees are scanning QR codes for content about your company in your booth space, which you will receive those leads. And then you also have the traditional lead retrieval driven by the exhibitor so that your team can scan for those leads as well. And finally, our last item, which is another great feature that NAFEM offers, is using CompuSystems Traffic Max, which is our complimentary attendee list. Starting January 13th, exhibitors are going to be able to download this list in their exhibitor registration dashboard, which can also be accessed through the Exhibitor Resource Center. As we get closer to this January 13th date, more details will be provided, including easy instructions on how to download this list at any time leading up to the show after January 13th. While we're talking about exhibitor-driven lead retrieval, that more traditional lead retrieval approach where your exhibits team is scanning attendee badges, NAFEM, our official registration partner, CompuSystems, is going to be sending out activation codes to your trade show contact on file on December 6th to allow your team to download the CompuLead app to ensure you're prepared to scan badges on site at the show. If you have any questions from the items we've provided, especially with exhibitor-driven lead retrieval, we have provided CompuSystems direct helpline and email for reference here on the screen. Of course, if you have any general questions, please feel free to reach out to our team, info@thenafemshow.org. We're more than happy to address those questions. But of course, more of these details will be shared in our next webinar on December 11th, which is more specific to lead retrieval, exhibitor registration, and these last couple slides that we covered, also including attendee-driven lead retrieval. Next, we wanted to review some exhibitor marketing tools, another great way to market your presence at the NAFEM show. So to promote your presence at the NAFEM show, you can use our official show logo, our e-flyers, and more. Here in this slide deck, we have linked also on the nafemshow.org website, this quick reference guide, which provides a high-level overview of the materials, plus instructions and tips. You can access the quick reference guide by clicking on the marketing kit tile, also in your Exhibitor Resource Center. Through the exhibitor registration dashboard, also in your Exhibitor Resource Center, you can access the free attendee list download, and you can invite a customer by using the Invite a Customer email template. So this really does a lot of the hard work for you and allows you to send those customer invites to invite them to the show. As a reminder, as I just mentioned, attendee lists are going to be available for download starting January 13th. Please also be on the lookout for more information this month to submit your company profile, which will be featured in our mobile app. Our NAFEM show app will be available to download near the end of December. All of these tools can be accessed by logging into your Exhibitor Resource Center that I just reviewed. Also, as a reminder, please don't forget to join us on our December 11th webinar as we dive deeper into these marketing tools, as well as what I mentioned earlier about lead retrieval, exhibitor registration. We also talk about the marketing tools, which allow you to better promote your presence at the NAFEM show. Now, I know we've reviewed a lot of important deadlines, but as we start to wrap up this webinar, we want to do another quick review of these important dates. So one item we didn't touch on in this webinar, but in a previous webinar, we are approaching our deadline to submit your booth diagrams. These detailed floor plans are due, which can be submitted in the Exhibitor Resource Center in 2 days on November 8th, this Friday. And keep in mind, this is required for any exhibitor that has an island, split island, or peninsula booth, as well as any exhibitors who manufacture walk-in coolers, refrigerators, or freezers. Please note that for any booth configuration eligible to have a hanging sign, such as an island booth, that no hanging signs are permitted to be rigged over an aisle. Your hanging sign must be rigged over the confines of your contracted booth space. Also, if you received a booth violation at the 2023 show, then you are required to submit a detailed floor plan. As we mentioned in a previous webinar, if you have any questions about those booth diagrams, and maybe you just have an inline space, or you don't fall under one of these categories, please feel free to reach out to info@thenafemshow.org. Our team is more than happy to take a look at that diagram and just provide you that peace of mind that you don't have any violations that you might be potentially facing on site. Getting into some other important dates here. December 11th, I mentioned that a couple of times, is our next webinar. We're going to dive deeper into exhibitor registration, lead retrieval, and booth promotion. So all very important topics, whether you're a new exhibitor or, again, maybe a new contact, or even if you let your team members know, maybe they've been to the NAFEM show, but they would like to see new opportunities to promote their presence, learn more about registration and lead retrieval. Some of these other key deadlines, January 10th is going to be the last day to submit contracts and any kind of company name changes. So keep in mind, if you are already a contracted exhibitor, of course, and you need to change your company name, January 10th is the deadline to make that change. January 27th, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, is the Freeman discount deadline. So keep in mind with the Freeman and the Edlin discount deadlines, that you can also still place orders after these deadlines, but they will be at a higher premium because this is their early discount deadline. Same with Edlin. All utilities are ordered through Edlin as the exclusive provider with the Georgia World Congress Center. Their early discount deadline is February 5th. And of course, we've linked here our ongoing education webinar, our resource video series, linked here for easy access, also easily accessible on the nafemshow.org website. Now with that, I'm going to invite Jackie and Alice back on, and we can start our Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Kelsey. So let's get to some questions here. How do I guarantee my freight is in my booth when I arrive, as I don't have a lot of time to set up since I'm scheduled for a Tuesday move-in?
I can take it. I know Kelsey has been talking the whole time. So Kelsey reminded all of you of this many times throughout the webinar, but we really encourage you to ship your freight to the advanced warehouse. If you ship your freight to the advanced warehouse, it will be in your booth or near your booth at the time of your designated move-in time. So you don't have to worry about a crunch time or where's your freight or running to the Freeman desk to make sure that you can't find it. So we really highly encourage you to ship it early, get it there, and it will be available and you can have your entire time. If you do feel that you need additional time and your targeted move-in scheduled time doesn't align with what you think you need, there is a submission form on that target move-in map that you can submit a request to change that date. Again, can't guarantee any changes. It's all based on the Freeman production schedule. Obviously, we have many exhibitors here and everybody is important, but we just have to prioritize based on their production schedule for our extended move-in time.
How do I figure out what to order for my specific utility needs for my booth?
I can take that one. Or do you want to take it,
ahead.
Jackie? Oh, okay. I was going to say, we both know the answer. So especially when it comes to utility needs, whether it be, you might be a company that needs all of the above, right? You might need compressed air, electric, water, drainage, especially for any cooking, frying equipment. So sometimes it can be challenging, especially if you're a first-time exhibitor or if maybe you're brand new to your role and you're not sure what you're going to need. We always highly recommend having the guides, the schematics, the specs of your equipment. Those are always key to have. And instead of sharing them with us, our team is very skilled in making sure that you get the right people to answer those questions. We highly recommend going directly to Edlin, Georgia World Congress Center's exclusive vendor for utilities. Again, that's accessible. You can contact them through the Exhibitor Resource Center. If you go to forms and select utilities, they will be able to talk through with you. They have a team also available by phone before you place that order, because maybe you have a really big piece of equipment, especially when we see ovens on the floor a lot, and you're not sure of what to get. We highly recommend have that conversation with their team. They're happy to help. And then that way you know that you're not just, let's say, ordering too much power that you don't need, or you didn't order enough power. It's much easier to have that conversation early, place that order early, because if you place it on site, we can't guarantee it's going to be done immediately. You kind of have to wait in the order that they receive those orders.
So we have chefs that will need to prep for cooking at the show. How early can they get into the Georgia World Congress Center?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So if the chefs are coming to prepare for demonstration purposes in your booth. We do allow anyone that's registered with your company access to the show floor 2 hours before we open. So if, you know, we open at 9 o'clock each day, not including training time, they'll have access at 7 a.m.
Even if there is training time, they won't get in at 6 a.m. Just to be sure, just play devil's advocate.
That would be something we would have to take offline because it's a security thing. So we would just have to figure out, like, if there are a lot of requests at that hour 2 hours before training time, we would have
My
to just
apologies.
figure out.
I'm sorry I brought that up, but okay.
That's all right.
That's something, I think that's legit because people will probably ask that. So that probably is something that we should look into.
I
Okay.
also want to point out, this was a really good question. So in 2023, we did have some companies ask, because, and we'll double check on this, but if you had purchased, if you purchased 24-hour power, especially with, Edlin in Atlanta, we know that some people on Tuesday before the show opens Wednesday morning, they do start to do preps of, let's say, fryers, ovens, and they might do tests of those items if you're maybe making test samples of some kind that you have approved with the convention center. So we do see if, for instance, that 2 hour early time that, you know, the day of doesn't work. We did see some companies, and this is perfectly fine to do. If you purchase the 24-hour power, the floor the day before is open until 5. So use that time if you need to, you know, prep or turn on those ovens, make sure they're functioning the way you need them to function if you're demoing that equipment on site. So that was a good question.
Will the NAFEM party be assigned seats or will it be like previous shows and take place on the field with seating and tables?
Yeah, so 2 points to make here. So if your company or individuals that you're with purchase like a VIP or a MVP lounge is what we're calling them, or a table purchase, those will be assigned and in a designated area. But if you're just attending the concert, it's all going to be open seating, and the open seating will be between a mixture of the field and what they call the Delta Club.
Are we allowed to bring food to serve to people?
I can answer that one. Yeah, so no, this is a really good question. NAFEM being in the, you know, food equipment manufacturing space, we know that people are going to be cooking during the show. So the rules and regulations do explicitly state that during the show reception hours, where you're allowed to host receptions in your space on Wednesday, February 26th and Thursday, February 27th, that is between 3 and 5 p.m. You are allowed to order catering through the exclusive caterer levy, any kind of alcohol, non-alcohol, food items that you would like to serve in your booth. Now, outside of those times, outside of 3 to 5, so 9 to 3 on Wednesday and 9 to 3 on Thursday, you can still do sampling of non-alcoholic items and food items. But in the Exhibitor Resource Center, there is that sampling form. So you do need to complete it. So you're allowed to serve those samples, non-alcohol and food, but it does specify the number of ounces you're allowed to serve. They're meant to be samples, which is kind of implied in the form. So I believe it is 2 ounces with non-alcoholic beverages, and I believe it is 4 ounces for food sampling. So just definitely look at that form, read those rules and regulations, and then you submit that to the catering team. I will say, because of the nature of the NAFEM show, Levy's team will be walking the floor. So if you're serving a sample that was not approved, they will have that conversation with your team. So definitely review that form and get those submissions in.
Is there a way to update the products listed for my company in the NAFEM app?
Yes, this is possible, but we do, as a team, our membership manager, Celeste Fuchs, also reviews this information just to ensure that it is a product that your company is currently selling, producing. So if you have a request to add or change your product categories, please send us an email at info@thenafemshow.org. Typically, it is not an issue to change those, but again, NAFEM does verify to make sure that those product categories are appropriate based on what your team produces.
Where do I update show contact information?
Let me answer that one. Okay.
I was gonna say it's the same answer.
Yeah.
Or you can go directly to
Yes.
info@nafem.org and just, actually,
Yes.
you could log in as a NAFEM member, log into the dashboard, and you could go in and update the contact. If
Yes.
you're not
Right.
exactly sure how to do that, absolutely send a note to either info@thenafemshow.org or info@nafem.org, and we'll be happy to help you. Um,
I think we had a question about if the slides will be made available.
yeah, I was gonna go back to that at the end because I thought that was just kind of a general one, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, they will be.
Yeah.
The recording of this webinar, the slides will be available in the next 24 hours, and those will be posted on the nafemshow.org.
When will we be informed if our product is selected to participate as an exhibitor in the What's Hot, What's Cool area? Sometime this week. By the end of
This
the week,
week.
you should know. Sometime by the
Yep.
end of the week, you should know. Is there an additional charge to ship to the Freeman Advanced Warehouse?
So it's not an additional charge per se. There is a specific fee that's associated based on the weight of your freight. So, and that information can be found in the Freeman forms and the ERC. The benefit of shipping to the advanced warehouse is that the cost includes receiving at the advanced warehouse and then them bringing it to your booth directly. So it's a kind of an all package included price based on the weight of the freight that you're sending. So you'll ship it there and you can expect it to be in your booth upon arrival for your target move-in time.
Does someone need to be at the booth when it gets picked up, loaded onto the truck on move out day, or can we leave it packaged in the booth?
So if you have an organized outbound freight carrier and everything is labeled, prepaid for, and appropriately all set with Freeman, then if you are all set and packaged up, you can leave it in your booth and Freeman will take care of it. If you do not have a bill of lading or a material handling form filled out with Freeman and you just leave your freight there, they will charge you and connect with you or charge the card on file per se, depending on, what's left there. But we recommend always labeling everything and making sure that your outbound pickup is scheduled and ready to go. So Freeman knows if they have to pick up your freight and bring it to the dock.
Oh, also, I do want to add, in addition to Jackie's point, is that, a lot of times if you have a small booth, it's easy for your team to just pack up your items. Maybe you hand carried some flyers and you can head right out. But if you have a very large booth, whether Freeman constructed it or an exhibitor appointed contractor constructed it, of course, your team can't necessarily have all the tools to take all those things down if it's a large structure. So on Friday, when the show closes at 3 p.m., exhibitor appointed contractors will then be let back in the same way they came in during move-in with their wristbands to be able to start dismantling your space. So we know that once empty containers are returned, your team that's working your booth may not be the people that are dismantling the booth. It'll be really a key, just make sure, to Jackie's point, that if you're working with an exhibitor appointed contractor, they also have that bill of lading if they're also working with the carrier that is then picking up that freight, or if it's through Freeman. So definitely look into those details. I would recommend looking at those details when you get on site, not waiting to the last day. And when you're not sure what's going to happen, when you leave it to the last minute, then you're, not sure what's going to happen the day of.
Training time, is that time for the exhibitor to maybe train customers or dealers on the equipment before everyone goes in? That's exactly what it is. Yep, that's exactly what it is. When in November will we be able to add our products and details to the app?
So,
Yeah,
or
so
sorry,
I was gonna say, so we're pushing for actually like right after Thanksgiving. We're finalizing some stuff on our end to make available to the exhibitors to ensure that everything's available at once. So we will be sending out some communications to all exhibitors and kind of indicating where and what you need to fill in order for your information to be updated in the app. Some of the information is already pre-populated based on your membership profile. This will be in addition to that. And booth details and sales information and product information and all that good stuff. So more to come, but it will likely be the first week of December.
I got ADLR CompuLead. I didn't get that last one. Can you go back to that? and Explain.
Yes. Let me just go back because it's always good to have a visual. So attendee-driven lead retrieval, quick snapshot is the attendee scans that QR code that you have either physically on your booth structure, on a piece of paper, let's say in a sign holder, if you will. So that is the first opportunity that NAFEM is offering to connect with attendees. The traditional exhibitor-driven lead retrieval, which is the CompuLead app, where your exhibits team is scanning attendee badges. So typical what we've offered at previous shows, something your team is probably familiar with. If you're a first-time exhibitor, if you've gone to other shows, it's very standard. You're using an app to scan that badge. And then the final is actually Traffic Max, which is our complimentary attendee list. So again, all three of these items are complimentary that NAFEM offers to all of its exhibitors. So we're excited to do that. And this attendee list is going to start to be available on January 13th. More of those details will also be shared in our webinar next month. So definitely recommend joining that webinar because we definitely go more into detail on these items. But starting January 13th and then leading up to the show, there's no limit. You can pull an attendee list at any time. You can segment it a certain way. And in the meantime, as we get closer to that date, we will provide additional resources to help you pull that attendee list and segment it as you need to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll give it a second or two, but it looks like we've answered all of the questions. So I think that's it. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Reminder, recording of today's webinar will be posted by tomorrow for reference on the NAFEM show site, along with the slides from today's presentation. And if you haven't already, sign up for the next webinar taking place on December 11th at 2 p.m. Central for exhibitor registration, lead retrieval, and booth promotions. That's it. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you.